no war is complete without Scott Ritter's peerless interpretation and analysis over it. And increasingly, his purview is the world. He knows as much about Venezuela as he does about Iran. He knows as much about Israel, Palestine, Gaza, as he does about the NATO war against Ukraine, which is marvelous for us and certainly keeps him in great demand from me. There's scarcely a week when I'm not consulting him. As I said earlier, Scott Ritter came up with this wonderful metaphor, and you need to know the Arab world to know it. The camel always tries to put its nose under the tent, and if it's allowed, well, before you know it, it'll be inside the tent sleeping with you. And so the only answer is when the camel sticks its nose under the tent is to give that nose a good whack. Well, I wonder if Scott agrees with me that Russia is going to have to do this after the seizing of not one but two Russian tankers overnight. Scott Ritter, thanks as always for joining us. Let's start with the breaking news of the seizure in the North Sea of a Russian tanker, Marinera, going about its lawful business. The British and the Americans doing the fighting, of course, but the British doing the basing and some of the logistics, have actually literally seized a Russian tanker. There's got to be a payback for that, isn't there?
Well, let's just put this in stark terms. The United States is calling this a law enforcement operation. Apparently the Coast Guardsmen and other law enforcement officials are acting on a warrant that has been issued by the Southern District of New York, permitting them to seize this ship. The problem with that warrant is it has no basis in law. To affect the blockade of Venezuela, which is what the United States is seeking to do, to deny Venezuela the ability to have shipping come in and come out, to sell its oil as it sees fit. This is a blockade. A blockade is an act of war. There has been no declaration of war by the United States Congress against Venezuela, nor has the President of the United States sought out Congress for authority for the use of military force in Venezuela. And so there is no blockade legally. There is no blockade. People need to understand that. If there was, it would be an act of war, but there isn't. So there's no legal basis whatsoever for the United States to be seeking to detain shipping to and from Venezuela. Now, to board a tanker, regardless of the flag under which that tanker is sailing in the open seas, is an act of piracy. Piracy. It's an illegal act. Now, the fact that the United States has chosen to carry out an act of piracy against a tanker flagged legally under the Russian Federation, there's nothing illegal about what has transpired in terms of the transfer of flags from one country to another. Hell, the United States did it when we were sending tankers to Kuwait. If you remember in the 1980s, during the tanker war between Iraq and Iran, the United States reflagged vessels and sailed them under the protection of the United States fleet as they transited so that they wouldn't be attacked by Iran or Iraq. We did it. It's legal. Russia did it. And now we've boarded and seized a Russian tanker in total violation of the laws, the international laws. It's an act of piracy. If this isn't dealt with quickly, the United States will believe that it has carte blanche, a blank check to do anything it wants anywhere. Donald Trump accompanied this act of piracy with a social media posting where he said, "Everybody's afraid of me. Everybody's afraid of me. Russia, China, Iran, they're afraid of me. They fear me. They fear my military." This man believes this nonsense. And if Russia acts as if it is indeed intimidated by the use of force in the United States, this will happen again and again and again until the damn camel is in the tent. The Russia's got to smack.
Well,
look, I'm an American.
I thought it was
I don't wish any harm to befall anybody. Go ahead.
No, I understand that. But cruising for a bruising was the phrase that I reached for. I'm not an American. I believe that the peace of the world depends on actual multipolarity being asserted and being a proven fact. At this moment, the kind of social media posts, the kind of drunken braggadocio practiced by Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump in particular on their aircraft, anyone sticks a camera in front of them, they're ready to threaten anyone, they're ready to issue the kind of statements you've just quoted from Trump. Everybody's afraid of me. But what if he's right, Scott? What if everybody is afraid of him? What if the Venezuelans took a dive in round 7 last week? Have we been somehow fooled into thinking that there were powers in the world that were strong enough and had the will to stand up to Donald Trump?
This is a question that needs to be answered sooner rather than later. The United States government believes that the world is cowed by Donald Trump and the all-powerful Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and everybody who attaches themselves to these blustering idiots. Let me just make it clear right now. I've always believed in a strong America, but an America attached to the rule of law, a constitutional republic that used its strength in legitimate acts of self-defense of itself and its allies against real threats. I believe that if we go to war, we need to win those wars. And in order to win those wars, we have to have the most powerful military in the world, that we should never engage in a fair fight. But I don't believe we should go searching for wars. And I certainly don't believe that we should be acting in a manner that it totally obviates the notion of the rule of law. We are a rogue nation today, ruled by a Caligula-like dictator, a narcissist who has created a cult of personality that moots any notion of constitutional law or international law. We are a rabid dog. Now, the question is, normally when a rabid dog is roaming the streets, an Atticus Finch type character will emerge and put a bullet in the head of this rabid dog. It appears that we're waiting in vain for Atticus Finch. Again, I don't want harm to befall Americans, but as you point out, if this behavior continues unchecked, it will not stop until the United States has pushed a nuclear-armed power, whether it be Russia or China or North Korea, to the brink. And then decisions will be made that will probably result in the death of everybody. And so if I were the Russian leadership, now is not the time for pragmatism. The notion that the spirit of Alaska somehow continues to live on in the United States, it never lived on. If anything, Russia should look back and realize that Alaska was a farce, a fraud, a charade designed to lure Russia down a path of passivity, making Russia believe that there was a light at the end of the sanctions tunnel if Russia could just find a way for a peace deal that will never be reached because the United States doesn't want it reached. The United States under Donald Trump is continuing the same policies of every presidential administration since Vladimir Putin took office in 2000, and that is regime change. We want him gone, and Trump wants him gone. Hell, Trump tried to have him killed last month in a drone attack. The Russians need to wake up. America is not your friend. America is your enemy. And you need to understand that and act accordingly. And this is the time when Russia needs to draw a red line. If you don't, then America is going to do something closer to your shores, We're going to challenge you in the Black Sea. And you'll keep backing down until there's American boots on the ground in Ukraine, and you'll be confronted with the need to either have a nuclear war with the United States or give up your goals and objectives in Ukraine, in which case it's all lost because you'll return to the 1990s where you're on your knees begging for crumbs from the American table. So, Russia needs to do something and do something now, decisive. I don't say it has to be resulting in the deaths of Americans. I don't want Americans to die. But it has to be done in a way that Donald Trump knows that he cannot get away with this kind of activity. Put a damn torpedo in the rudder of this Coast Guard vessel and leave it spinning helplessly in the ocean. Board this tanker with Spetsnaz forces and dare any American law enforcement on board to open fire. Demand the release of the ship or you'll blow the port up in England where the ship is being held. You cannot allow your ships to be taken hostage by the United States and Great Britain. And that is what has happened here. This is not a lawful operation. It's an act of piracy. And in the old days, we used to take pirates out and hang them by the neck until dead.
Indeed, pirates of the Caribbean is one thing. Pirates in the North Sea, well, it's particularly close to home. And Keir Starmer, who plummeted further to 11% approval rating. Imagine, a guy is sailing us into existential danger with 11% approval rating in the country. Somebody asked me in a call earlier, Scott, and I fear I didn't answer him comprehensively enough. It would be good to get your take from overseas on this. Why is Britain so involved in these anti-Russian provocations? Not just this latest one, but in military activity all over Ukraine and for a very long time, right from the beginning of the coup regime in 2014. Why do you think the British are doing this?
The British have had an issue with Russia from the very beginning, back when they were competing empires. We only have to look at the Crimea War in the 1850s to see evidence of this. The great game that was played in Central Asia between the British Empire in India and Pakistan, butting up against the Russian Empire expanding through Central Asia. World War I. Many people don't realize the British landed an expeditionary force in northern Russia that engaged in active hostilities against the Bolshevik government. The British during World War II, while we were ostensibly the allies of the Soviet Union, were working with Polish, insurgent forces and banderists in Poland and Ukraine to kill Russian soldiers in 1944 and 1945. Joseph Stalin put Winston Churchill on notice. He says, "You guys are killing our people. What do you expect me to take this lying down? We're not going to." Winston Churchill came up with Operation Unthinkable, which was supposed to be the mobilization of 10 Nazi divisions in support of the British and the Americans to continue the war in 1945 against the Soviet Union. The British have been engaged in covert operations against the Soviets and now the Russians for time immemorial. The British hate the Russians viscerally. There's a visceral dislike for this, for the Russian people, for the Russian nation. So it is what it is. I mean, the fact of the matter, Britain is infected with Russophobia to a degree that's even greater than you find in the United States.
Sure. No doubt. Let's turn to Venezuela, about which you have had very strong things to say. I used the phrase earlier that they took a dive in the seventh. To use a boxing metaphor, I don't know who took the dive, who took the bribe, but somebody somewhere betrayed Nicolas Maduro, didn't they?
Yes. It's in the Ministry of Defense. The fact is, so many Ministry of Defense units failed to perform, and they're finding out increasingly that's because they had received orders to stand down. Anybody who hesitated to follow those instructions were subjected to withering suppressive fire by American military assets. We had areas that we were monitoring as we came in. If they were quiet as they were supposed to be, we didn't take them out. If there were people moving around who shouldn't be, we killed everybody. And that's the bottom line. We had access to the cyber infrastructure of the Venezuelans. We were able to turn out the lights when and where we wanted, turn out power. These things don't happen. The United States has been projecting a blow against Venezuela for some time now. And the idea that the Venezuelan military was taken off guard is ludicrous. Professional militaries with this much lead time should have had Caracas fortified like you've never seen fortified before. The fact that the Venezuelan president is staying in a residence for a sustained period of time, so long that for more than 2 months, Delta Force was able to do full-scale, mock assaults on a full-scale replica of this facility, down to every door, every moving part. How did we know that? Somebody sold them out. The bottom line is the CIA has been very, very busy in Venezuela. A lot of money has been paid out or promised to a lot of people, and the United States is acting as if we have control over some very serious people inside Venezuela, and we fully expect them to do our bidding in the near future. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, but there's no doubt, let me just make this as clear as day, the United States would never have attempted this kind of operation had we not had assurances from inside that people were going to take a dive in the 7th.
Are they telling the truth when they say that they are in control? I mean, you can see it. There's an incentive for Trump to pretend that he's now calling the shots in Venezuela. Otherwise, all he achieved was a bit of a headache in public relation terms with the battered wife of Maduro, and with Maduro, who's quite a performer, as you know, quite a charismatic and powerful aura about him. Having him on his feet in the courtroom will be a headache for Trump. And if he did it all to achieve actually zero control of events in Venezuela, well, he'll look the chump. So you can see why Trump is preparing or is preferring to imply that he's now running Venezuela. So that it can run properly, unlike the United States in the streets of Philadelphia, of course. He is he telling the truth is what I'm asking? Or has the regime just sacrificed the king in order to somehow continue on the board in its own terms?
Donald Trump is not sitting as the president of the United States of America. What I mean by that is a president normally has a cabinet, has a staff, has departments, has agencies that work in a coordinated fashion to develop policies that will be implemented in a comprehensive fashion. So that when the president says something, the weight of the United States is attached to that. So if a president says this will happen, it will happen because we have done our homework. We've crossed our T's, dotted our I's. Instead, we have a cult of personality where a narcissist has to be fed BS 24/7, how great he is. I mean, my God, this is a man who sits at the desk of the White House and has people lay hands on him as if he is a conduit to God Almighty. This is the level of stupidity and ridiculousness we have reached. He is not being well advised. He is not getting comprehensive assessments. He's being told that which he wants to hear by people who need him to believe that they're on his side, so he keeps them in their inner circle, because the second you fall afoul of Caligula, he throws you to the wolves. He's been lied to by his CIA. He's been lied to by his Secretary of State. He's been lied to by his Secretary of War. Venezuela, yes, the CIA bought some people. But as we see right now, the United States is not in control of Venezuela. We're not in control of their oil. We're in control of nothing but the rhetoric that comes out of Donald Trump's social media. But that doesn't control things a bit. I think we're going to find out that the United States, Donald Trump, has been lying to people about the degree to which the United States controls the events on the ground in Venezuela. It doesn't mean that this is over. It doesn't mean the United States can't prevail. But I think, look, Donald Trump claimed that he negotiated peace between Thailand and Cambodia. I made it happen. Peace. Well, we found out that nothing happened because he doesn't understand the issues. And they're back at war today and all this. He thinks things are happening in Venezuela that aren't happening. He thinks that by seizing Maduro, that will lead to a cascade of dominoes that aren't falling at this point in time. I think he's going to find out that Venezuela is a much tougher nut to crack than he's been led to believe by his sycophantic staff.
Finally, Scott, Henry Kissinger of the Iran-Iraq war said it's a pity both can't lose. In the struggle between Donald Trump and the King of Denmark, or Queen, I don't know what they've got, of Denmark, I'm entirely neutral. Denmark deserve it, having willingly become slaves of empire and being first off the rank to give their recognition to the illegal rendering or renditioning of Serbia and the recognition of the breakaway of Kosovo and so on. I don't care what Donald Trump does to Greenland, but it's undoubtedly causing tremendous angst amongst the European Union that they may have to humiliate themselves, abase themselves at the feet of the US empire and accept the invasion by one NATO country of another, by one ally of another, and accept that the ugly American has arrived in all his orangeness in Greenland. What's your view about that?
The United States government under Donald Trump has said that Greenland is the highest national security priority of the United States at this moment. Let me just make it clear. We own Greenland. It's ours. I'm sorry, Denmark. I wish it didn't happen this way, but it couldn't happen to a nicer person. I am gleeful only for the following reason. I pray that the Europeans follow through on their promises of resolution when it comes to responding to this, and that NATO is dead, that they destroy this horrible edifice, that NATO falls apart, NATO collapses. The United States will get its due. One way or another, this narcissist will not go down in history as anything other than an abject failure. He's an embarrassment to the American people. He's an embarrassment to the constitutional republic. He's an embarrassment to humanity. But sometimes embarrassments, there's a silver lining in each little cloud. And the silver lining here is the end of NATO. I said when Mark Rutte became the Secretary General that he will be the last Secretary General of NATO. And I firmly believe that those words will be accurate. NATO is a sick enterprise. It doesn't deserve to continue. And I couldn't think of a more fitting death to NATO than it consuming itself as the United States absorbs Greenland and Denmark throws a hissy fit and Europe collapses in conniption fits around them. I will laugh until I can laugh no more, because I despise NATO as an institution. I despise the nations that comprise NATO. And this is justice, if there ever was justice.
Amen to that. This embarrassment point you make. I mean, Trump's performances are increasingly unhinged. They are increasingly embarrassing. He said last night, even his own wife is telling him that he's embarrassing himself. It's unpresidential behavior, the facial contortions, the pirouetting, YMCA, dancing, and so on. He's becoming a parody of Donald Trump. Is anyone in Washington going to do anything about that? Tell him to sit down, or maybe even reach for the 25th Amendment?
Not now. He's surrounded by sycophants. These are people who are riding the coattails of Donald Trump. Trump needs to understand none of them like him. They all hate him. In fact, they despise him. But they're going to ride the Trump bandwagon as far into the system as they can go before eventually jumping off. Trump has the potential of failing abysmally in the midterm elections. And he's already noted that if that happens, it will be impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. And if he continues to behave in an unhinged fashion, there is a good chance in his second term that the 25th Amendment will be instituted. This is not a sane person. This is not a rational actor. This is an unhinged character whose fingers on the the nuclear arsenal of the United States, who's behaving in a manner which is putting not only the entire American population but the global population at risk. So, let him do what he does right now. There's a better than even chance that he will fail at the polls in the midterm elections, and that the Democrats will paralyze his administration and come after him. And, in the past, he hunkered down because there apparently were working synapses in his what passes for a brain. I think anymore, the ability for Donald Trump to think rationally is long gone. And we're going to find people saying we have to remove him from the briefcase. And I think you'll see J.D. Vance and others step in and say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, you're no longer fit to govern. We're invoking the 25th Amendment. This is my hope. This is my dream. This is my passion, because this man must go down in history as a failed president, as a disgrace. Future students of American history must look at him, and he needs to serve as an abject lesson of what not to do as an American leader.